Do you know your blood type? Because I know mine. I'm O negative. You should figure that out. This is Norse Teaches Science. Biology edition will continue in the genetics information, starring me, Mr. Norse. And today we're going to talk about something called blood type squares, or we're basically going to solve Punnett squares for blood types. So by the end of this video, your goal is I can use a Punnett square when more than two alleles are present and analyze that Punnett square. Mainly, we're going to talk about something called multiple alleles. When we talk about multiple alleles in genetics, most times people refer straight to human blood types. So multiple alleles is when there are more than two alleles for one trait. So for human bloods, you'd be IA, IB, or lowercase I. That means there's more than two alleles. In most cases, just two different letters. So when we talk about blood types, this is how we write the genotypes. So for type A, you have big I capital A, I capital A. This right here is homozygous because they're the same. Big big A, lowercase I, that's heterozygous. So if I say John Smith has homozygous type A blood, you would write I capital A, I capital A. And we're using exponents here, or superscripts, as they're called. Type B blood is the same way, but with B. Type AB blood is IA, IB, and type O blood is lowercase I, lowercase I. That means O blood is a recessive trait. So you have to have the both lowercase letters to have it. So I have lowercase I, lowercase I. So let's talk about this first practice. It says Gertrude McFuzz has type AB blood. She marries Bubba Slicker, and Bubba has type O blood. We're looking for the possible genotypes of their children, and we're even going to do phenotypes at the same time. So let's first write Gertrude's genotype. Gertrude is type AB blood, and according to our chart, which you should probably memorize, is IA, IB. And Bubba, it says Bubba has type O blood, and according to our chart, that's lowercase I, lowercase I. So we're going to place them in Punnett square like we usually do. Female at the top, male down the side. So when we do that, we fill it in like usual. One from the top, one from the side comes down. Always capital letters first before lowercase letters, and we also always do A before B if that ever comes. This is just an English language thing. Um, I'm not sure how this differs in, say, other languages. If you know that, maybe leave me a comment, uh, link a video or something down there. I would love to see how that would happen and how this happens in different languages. I may not know what they're saying in the language, but I can look visually and kind of compare. All right, so I did the Punnett square, as you can see. So we need to write the possible genotypes and phenotypes. So the first genotype I see is IA, lowercase I. So I'm doing genotypes right now. So how many boxes have IA, lowercase I? 2 boxes. So that's 50%. The next box I see is IB, lowercase I. The next genotype, I mean. How many boxes have that? That's 2 boxes. That's 50%. All right, phenotypes. Remember, there's 4 blood types you can have: A, B, AB, and O. So, how many of these genotypes are for type A blood? 1, 2. It's 50%. How many are for B blood? That's IB or IB lowercase I. I see 2, 1, 2. That's 50%. Are there any genotypes for AB? That's IAIB? No. 0%. And are there any O blood types? That's 2 lowercase letters? No. 0%. So we've solved this Punnett square. A question that could be asked is, what is the probability that Gertrude McFuzz and Bubba Sligger will have a child with type A blood? And you would say 50%. Another question that could be asked here are, what is the probability that their children would have a recessive allele present? It means just one of them, and that would be 100%. Practice number 2. Mr. Little has type A blood and Mrs. Little has type B blood. They have 3 children, Stuart, Timmy, and Nancy. Both parents are heterozygous. What is the probability of their blood types for the children, both genotypes and phenotypes? So let's start with remember I always place the female at the top. That's Mrs. Little, and she has type B blood, but later on it says it's heterozygous. So if you write heterozygous, you would write IB lowercase I. Mr. Little, the male, goes down the side. He's type A blood, but it says that he's heterozygous, so that's IA lowercase I. So we fill in the boxes. All right, this one is IA lowercase I. IB lowercase I. And this one is lowercase I, lowercase I. So let's do our genotypes real quick. Geno. First one I see is IAIB. I see one box with that. That's 25%. The next one I see is IA lowercase I. And that's one box, so it's 25%. Next one I see is IB lowercase I. I'm right here. How many boxes? Only one. That's 25%. And last one I see is little I. And that's 25%. All right. Phenotypes. Remember, we have 4 blood types: A, B, A, B, and O. So let's look up here. How many boxes are for the genotype for blood type A? That would be one box. That's 25%. B is one box. That's 25%. AB is 25% as well. That would be this box right here. And O is 25%. That's that little I right there. So they have a probability of any of their children having any of the blood types. So it's really hard to determine. So this is the practice here. But another way we can look at this is in a real life situation. So we're going to talk a little bit about my life here. This is some real information. All right, Mr. Norris is type O blood, kind of like what we said. So what is O blood's genotype? That's little I, little I. So I'm going to write that big right here so we can look at it, because we're going to have to see it for a lot. And Mr. Norris's mom is type A blood. So the first question I have is, what would Mr. Norris's mom's blood type genotype be? So remember back to Mendel's conclusions. Half of someone's DNA comes from their mother and half from their father. So remember, I get one of these letters from my mom and one from my father. So one of these little I's is going to have to come to my mom, little I. Then it says up here she is type A blood. So to have type A blood, I have to have the big I A. And so this would be my mom's genotype. She is heterozygous type A blood. All right. Now let's talk about my father. I don't know much about my father, so let's see what could happen. What type or types of blood type could Mr. Norris's father be? Well, we know that this I comes over from him. So this I would have to come from him. Now, how many genotypes had a lowercase I in them? Well, we know from the mom it could be big I, A, little I, but you could also have big I, B, little I, because there's a little I there, or it could be little I, little I. So my father could be type A, type B, or type O. But none of my parents could be type AB blood. And that would be a real life example of using blood types in this situation. Now, I did mention I was type O negative. The negative stuff and positive stuff is a little bit more advanced, so I would check over at Google. But if you don't know, type O bloods can give blood to everyone, but they can only receive type O blood. So it's a very rare blood type. Now, when we also talk about multiple alleles, we have to talk about something called polygenetic traits. This is when traits are controlled by more than one genes. And you have to combine them from multiple chromosomes. And this is why there can be a wide range of phenotypes out there, like height. I mean, not everyone is short, tall. You got some middle ones. I'm 5'8", 5'9". I'm between the two. I'm actually the tallest of my family, which is weird. I'm taller than both my parents and my grandparents and my sister and my aunts, uncles. Yeah, I'm the tallest of the blood people. Now, people who married in, they're taller than me, but of blood, I'm the tallest. Hair color as well. I mean, you could have red hair, you could have blonde hair, you could have brown hair, you can have all these different hair colors. Um, Black hair, it's all in there. Skin color, there's so many different skin colors out there, and even eye colors. I mean, most of my family have brown eyes. In about every generation, we have someone with hazel eyes. I lucked out and was the person with hazel eyes. My grandfather has hazel eyes. One of my uncles has hazel eyes, and I have a cousin somewhere with hazel eyes. But other than that, they're all brown. That's just showing how dominance works. But that's how it works everywhere. Eye color is controlled by multiple genes. So if you want to learn more about some of those polygenetic traits, I would go over to Google. If you want to learn more about your blood types and all this other stuff, learn about who can get what blood type, go to Google as well. If you don't know what blood type you are, you can just talk to your doctor. Or how I found out is I actually donated blood to the Red Cross when I was in college. So you could also do that, and they have to test your blood. So usually they either email you, send you a letter. I got a little card in the mail that said I was O negative. But I hope you learned something today. And like always, this is Mr. Norris, and I am out of here for this video.